Hello, welcome back to the Project Hercules Diaries. If this works properly, you will be able to hear me. If not, I'm talking to myself, but I do a lot of that, so I guess it's okay. So this is a longer video by request. It's 7.5 minutes there, give or take, and it's a little bit of a time lapse of what goes on in the garage when I'm doing my tinkering around. So the job at the moment is to fit the new cylinder head. You can see me there just lining up the tool to compress the rings with the head, and then bolting the tool together so it compresses the rings, and then we slide the rings past the top of the sleeve, then remove the tool, and then we can push the head down onto the bike, and there we go. Fantastic. So all the nuts need to go in. There are 36 nuts around the top of the head, and just because we're not running the engine, I'm putting 6 of them in, so they're in groups of 3, so I'm doing the middle of each group of 3 nuts on the top of the head, so there's 6 to tighten down there. So that takes a little bit of time, but especially when you've got 36 to do. But as we're just turning it over to check that the bigger sprocket will do so, with the newer holes in the decompressor, it's not really essential to have all of the holes fitted. So then the engine goes back into the frame. You can see me there sort of wrestling, struggling with it a little bit. Needs a bit of a jiggle. Go Granville, you have to jiggle it. And as with all things, the more bolts you get in, the harder it is to get the next one in, because they're perfectly lined up, but there's always a little bit of play. A little tip for anyone: if you're ever putting an engine case on or an engine cover on and it's got lots of bolts around the outside, even if it's a professionally made one by Honda, what a lot of people do is they'll tighten up one bolt really tight and then start fitting the others, and of course you've clamped everything in place then, and if the hole doesn't quite line up, you've got a big problem. So it's always worth trying to get them all to start with your fingers first, have them finger tight, and then you can nip them up afterwards, and obviously do them in don't go round the clock like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and so you get an even torque applied. So as I'm fitting the engine here, I'm only doing a few of the bolts, one at the bottom, one at the rear, one at the front. It's only got to hold the engine in place so it doesn't fall out, and also so we can try starting it. It doesn't need to hold the engine in place to drive it down the road. Not yet, anyway, but they will do at some point. And when that happens, we'll have all of the bolts in place, and we'll probably have it painted too. So somebody asked around, what colour are you going to have? And I really don't know. I quite like the look as it is, and there isn't much to paint. If you look right there in front of you, well, the tank's aluminium, the frame is steel, the engine plates are steel, the engine's aluminium, the oil tank's aluminium at the front of the bike. So it's only really the mud guards and perhaps the tank that could be painted. And being aluminium, it doesn't need to be painted. So I might nickel plate the frame and just have the tank as it is. I like the brushed metal finish on the aluminium tank, so I wouldn't polish it. So effectively it wouldn't look too different to how it is now. And because we've got because it's not particularly bling, I wouldn't chrome the frame, but nickel plating is just a little bit yellower, might look quite nice. If anybody's good with Photoshop and they want to do a Photoshop rendering with a few colour options, that would be great, because I haven't got Photoshop, but it would be lovely to see it looking, what it would look like with a black frame and a white tank, or a black frame and a black tank, or perhaps all in duck egg blue like the underside of the RAF aircraft, perhaps a tiny bit of camo as a homage to the guys at Bomber Command who flew the Wellington bombers that had the original Hercules engines in. Yeah, it would be nice to experiment, and that's probably a little bit premature, I know, but then, hey, you've got to have an idea in your head of where you're going, haven't you? So at this point in the video, I'm trying to get the sprocket onto the Dynastart. It's a new sprocket with more teeth. It's a 19-tooth sprocket, and I just had to file it a few times, and and try and get it a nice fit so it goes all the way down to the shoulder, and then it's around fitting the chain. So the original chain isn't long enough because that's on a 13 tooth sprocket. So I've had to cut a new piece of chain and join the split links, and you know what, I hate doing chains. It really irks me. And one of my first bikes was a shaft drive, and ever since then I've just had shaft drive bikes. So I don't like chains. They're hassle, they're expense. You change the sprocket, you change the chain, you change the you oil them, it gets messy, and here we are. What are you doing? You're doing a bike with 2 chains, not 1. So yeah, go figure. But it's the only way. I think to make this a shaft drive would have been quite a challenge. I could have mated it to a Motor Guzzi gearbox and had 5 speeds and turned it sideways, but then everyone would say, oh look, Motor Guzzi gearbox, and there's quite a bit involved engineering wise of getting gears to mesh properly and to line up, and you can come into all kinds of trouble. Chains are a lot more forgiving, so chains it is. Well, it's pretty good set of rambling this, isn't it, considering I've got 7 minutes to fill, and I'm doing pretty well so far. So yeah, I'm messing around here trying to get the chain to work. You can't quite see, but I've got a power file just to file the edges off the pins and then knock them through, but it always takes longer than you think. And a big surprise with the chain for me is how strong it is. You can have the plate filed or ground down to being wafer thin, and it's still strong. Oh look, the garage door's open there. I think the Jehovah's Witnesses paid us a visit. Left me a magazine to read, which probably won't get read if I'm honest, but they were pleasant enough. So we had a quick chat for 2 minutes, and then they went off round the rest of their rounds. So there's the old chain going back in the box, sorry, brand new chain going back in the box, because I bought a mass of that 3/8 single simplex chain. It's now fitting to the bike. Here comes the dog. Get lost, dog, you're not supposed to be in here. It's not good for the dogs to be in the garage because they've got long ears, basset hounds, and it drags in the oil, and then drags around the house and then gets me in trouble. So won't be doing that again. So we are almost there. It's just fitting the chain, it's fitting the split link, and then adjusting the tensioner, and you can see right there how much bigger that front sprocket is. So it's going from 13 to 19 teeth. And now connecting the battery so we can have a go at starting it. So it's all quite, sorry, no, not starting it. Have a go at turning it over without the decompressor fitted to see what kind of gas volume we can displace. So there we go, next video on the way.